Greetings, duelists! I'm Pheromone, and today we're going all the way back to the beginning with Exodia. There are all new Millennium Monster support cards that are going to be released for this world-famous icon in the latest set of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, The Infinite Forbidden. Exodia! Obliterate! 2 words that changed the entire dueling world, and basically created it. Whether you're a competitor, or cosplayer, or collector, you know exactly the importance of these 5 special cards, but it's been a while since we've been able to see them on the top tournament tables. Whether you're chanting for one more piece, you probably know exactly what the original Exodia deck was about, assembling all 5 special cards and then declaring an instant victory. But now duelists have a new way to enjoy it, and it kind of has a little new spin from the Millennium World art. Remember those stone tablets that they placed all those cool monsters inside of? Well, you'll do the same thing by placing your Millennium monsters into the spell and trap zone as a continuous spell. And just like the anime, you'll crack open those stones in order to summon your monsters from inside those sacred stone tablets. Keep that in mind as we take a look at these ancient treasures. Speaking of ancient, it was never to happen, and for 1,000 years it never did. But now, Sengen Jin wakes from a millennium. Similar to the other Millennium monsters, Sengen Jin Wakes from Millennium has an effect to place itself in the spell and trap zone, and special summon itself from that sacred stone either by paying 2,000 life points or revealing the Millennium Ankh. You might notice from the text of the card, you can actually include Sengen Jin Wakes from a Millennium in any deck that wants to easily summon level 8 monsters with good stats and effects that protect Sengen Jin from being destroyed by monster effects. But where this card really shines is in concert with the other Millennium monsters. So let's see what Sengen Jin can grab from your deck whenever it special summons itself to the field with its own effect. One card you might reach for is Golem that guards the Millennium treasures. Just like Sengen Jin Wakes from a Millennium, Golem that guards the Millennium treasures can be played outside of its own deck whenever you want a level 6 monster on the field, using a similar effect to place it in the spell and trap zone as a continuous spell, and special summon itself from there by paying 2,000 life points or revealing the Millennium Ankh. However, unique to the Millennium deck, this card does 2 very important things. First, the activation of that all-important card, the Millennium Ankh, cannot be negated. And second, it also lets you add Weju Temple from your deck to your hand, which is this deck's signature field spell. We'll talk more about how great those 2 spell cards are, but first, let's see what else the Millennium monsters can do, starting with Shield of the Millennium Dynasty. Ideally, you'll want to keep the Shield of the Millennium Dynasty close at hand. Just like its Millennium brethren, it can be placed in the spell and trap zone as a continuous spell and arrives in the monster zone in the same way. But when special summoned via its own effect, you can add the Millennium Ankh from your deck to your hand, which means you immediately no longer have to pay those 2,000 life points to special summon similar Millennium monsters. This is a great go-to when playing Sengen Jin Wakes from a Millennium. Let's talk about some other Millennium monsters that follow their own rules, starting with Maiden of the Millennium Moon. While it can be placed in the spell and trap zone by its own effect, Maiden of the Millennium Moon is a little bit more reactive than its fellow Millennium cards. She's able to special summon herself whenever your opponent activates a card or effect, while the Moon Maiden is a continuous spell. And if she's summoned this way, for the rest of the turn your opponent cannot target level 5 or higher illusion or spellcaster monsters you control with card effects. It also carries that powerful illusion-type monster effect that prevents either Maiden of the Millennium Moon or the monster of battles from being destroyed by battle. Altogether, that makes it the preeminent protector of this deck's final boss. But we haven't finished with all the Millennium monsters. Not yet, because up next is Fiend Reflection of the Millennium. If you hadn't noticed, Fiend Reflection of the Millennium works very similar to Maiden of the Millennium Moon, and is equally durable when it comes to not being destroyed by battle. After being placed as a continuous spell on the field, it can jump out at a moment's notice whenever your opponent activates a card or effect, and even gain some life points equal to half the attack of a monster on the field. This will become very important if you spent all your life points on Millennium cards, but it will also boost the power of the unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. We're almost to the biggest boss fight your opponent has ever had, but let's revisit the spell cards we've mentioned first, starting with the Weju Temple. Look familiar? Well, the art depicts what is effectively the card collection of the Pharaoh and his allies as seen in the Millennium World story arc. And speaking of assembling a collection, the Wedge Temple will allow you to place any monster from your hand as a face-up continuous spell, and then place one Millennium monster from your deck in your spell and trap zone, also as a continuous spell. Finally, if one of your Millennium monsters you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place it in your spell and trap zone again as a face-up continuous spell instead of sending it to the graveyard, repeating the cycle once more. This places any monster from your hand as a continuous spell when you first activate its effect, so I wonder what cool combination duelists will come up with. But here's the moment you've all been waiting for, the introduction of a new Millennium item, the Millennium Ankh. Now, the Millennium Ankh has the power to prevent you from paying all those life points whenever you summon your Millennium monsters, but it also helps recycle those cards so they can be used to cycle through your strategy again. Finally, it unlocks the power of the unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, so it's time to find out what happens when you assemble all the pieces for victory. Your Exodia extra deck has no pathetic cards, but it does contain the unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. First off, easy to summon with Millennium Ankh? Check. Can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects? Check. Adds your strength to its own by adding attack equal to your life points when it battles? Check. Able to negate the activation of a spell or trap card or effect for the low cost of nothing? Check. Sets an Exod or Obliterate card during each end phase to keep you in the game? Check, check, and check. That said, this power does come at a small cost. The unstoppable Exodia Incarnate will drain your life points by 1,000 for every one of your standby phases. But it's not like a duel will last that long with it on the field. Now let's talk about the cool cards from the Infinite Forbidden that the unstoppable Exodia Incarnate can set from the deck. In the spell department, there's Obliterate Blaze. This one is wild. After activating Obliterate Blaze, your level 10 or higher Exodia monsters not only destroy all spells and traps on both sides of the field, but then you equip all 5 pieces of Exodia to give it 10,000 attack total, and it does piercing battle damage. But if you don't want to set a spell with the unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, you have a great new choice in the trap department. Introducing Exod Fires of Rage. Destroying all cards your opponent controls feels like a great way to remind them of just how powerful Exodia truly is. If you've already got this card in the graveyard, you can also banish it to cycle through your Forbidden One cards again, either by adding a Fallen Forbidden One card from your graveyard to your hand, or shuffling the entire set of Forbidden One monsters from your graveyard and or banishment back into the deck. With new ways to win, it'll be up to you to assemble all the pieces for victory, but they are coming in the Infinite Forbidden, so I cannot wait to see how you show your opponents just exactly what it feels like to get obliterated.